Yes, let me introduce myself very quickly. I'm Eric Blondin, partner at Simplify, and I also lead the business technology side of our business. And I'm joined today with Isham, who's going to introduce himself in just a few minutes after I've just summarily introduced Simplify, understanding what we're presenting, and then really Isham is going to carry you throughout the rest of the presentation. Okay, so first of all, talking about who Simplify is. So Simplify, we're a firm of partners focused on business content, process design, automation, and the implementation. I'm pretty much reading what's here: SAP planning, analytics, and consolidations. This is really the area in which we work. We do not go into any other areas in the SAP world. So we're very focused. And obviously, when we talk with us, our consultants in the previous project have all been working in that same small area. We don't do S4, we don't do success factors, all those other platforms, but we know them all because we really consolidate the information. We're one of SAP's go-to partners for anything analytics and planning. So that's something that's very important. We often work with SAP to try to help customers understand this solution. Uh, and obviously, as a small boutique firm really focused, our objective is 100% references. So we don't start too many projects at once. Objective is when we start, that customer is going to want to talk about us and probably talk with us with other customers to help them really capitalize on what we're putting together. We are physically located in Canada and the US, but obviously we've been covering customers across all industries and geographies. So even though we're here, we have people that can really deal with customers everywhere. Um, just focusing quickly, I'm going to go on a technology focus. So outside of really business services where we're helping you implement an expert as a service, understand what those solutions are, from a technology focus, SAP Analytics Cloud, Datasphere, these are really the two core components we've been investing on. We obviously are very familiar with the legacy solution like BPC, BW, which have been around for a long time. We really understand those. But in the last few years, we've really focused on SAP Analytics Cloud, Datasphere. And before I jump to the next slide, you see Simplify and Planify. And online, sometimes you may see both. Planify is really plenty of pre-built content we use to really accelerate our projects. And also for smaller companies, we host their whole planning environment through the Planify brand. And then if you do start a project with us, that's when you would be working with Simplify from a service perspective. So just to understand differentiation between these two. But now, before I give it over to Isham, just one last item. Been talking about SAP Analytics Cloud, SAP Datasphere. If you've been following current events in the SAP world, last month is it last month? We're still in March, so it's still last month. But really recently, it was announced that SAP Business Data Cloud will now include SAP Datasphere, SAP Analytics Cloud, which are really the two components we're going to be discussing today. But also, it will include as part of the same license. So it's not a package and you license each one of them. When you buy Office, you have Word, PowerPoint, Excel. It's the same logic here. You buy Business Data Cloud, you have access to all of these tools. And through capacity credits you're getting, you decide where you want to invest more of your time. But once you've bought it, you can transfer it as you start really capitalizing on it. So SAC, Datasphere, obviously, what we're covering today. SAP Databricks. So Databricks is actually a separate company from SAP. SAP did not buy Databricks, if you're wondering, but they've partnered with them. And this is going to be a Databricks instance that will be hosted by SAP. So that's why they call it SAP Databricks within the SAP Business Data Cloud. So you're going to be able, depending on what your requirements are, and it says it here on the slide, Datasphere is really integration, semantics, data warehousing, really. Whereas the data lake world and data science, machine learning, that's really going to be on Databricks. And the idea is it will be seamless depending on where you host your data for your users. They won't know where it is. You're going to be able to integrate all of this. And even if you have some legacy BW, you can import that in the cloud as well to really have your whole data environment on one platform, which is SAP Business Data Cloud. Um, I won't go further in that today, but really follow our channel. We have a lot of webinars coming up over the next few months where we're going to focus on different components of SAP Business Data Cloud. And if you do have any requirements or questions around this, really see Simplify as your business data cloud company. I said earlier, we focus on SAC Datasphere, but really going forward with our expertise that already exists in BW and Databricks coming in, this is really our wheelhouse. This is what we focus on. Enough talking about what's coming in the future. I know all of you have logged on to really get some insights as to how do you migrate a HANA Sidecar environment into Datasphere? What can be done? What are the challenges? And for this, I have Isham, who just went through a project where he did just that, and talking to you about all this. So Isham, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Eric, for the introduction. Yes, let me introduce myself. My name is Isham Medjed. I'm working on the BI award since 20 years, mainly on BW, business object, around the SAP technology. So also business data services, business object data services. So I have a good knowledge of legacy system, and I have the opportunity to work on Datasphere recently, and to migrate some HANA calculation view to Datasphere. So that is the experiences that I want to share with you, and to provide you some feedback and advice about how to do a proper migration from HANA Sidecar to Datasphere. So in order to do this presentation, I will mainly focus on the 3 layers architecture. I will give you, first of all, a project overview. What is the landscape? What are these architecture? And after I will try to explain the 3-layer architecture that we put in place. But also at the end, I will present some tips about performance optimization and memory consumption. As you will see, that is a very important topic. At the beginning of the project, you don't really care about performances, but it's a point that you need to address. The sooner, the better. So that is the global architecture that we work on. The initial project was to work on to decommissionate a SAP HANA Sidecar product because it was very consuming of memory, very costly, and the goal was to migrate to a Datasphere solution to be able to plug SAC on the top of it, and also to keep some part of business object with it. So first of all, there is a SAP SEC system where we have our data, and the point is that it contains a whole DIMS version that was 2011, and so we don't want to touch this system. So in the interval, what we put in place was a SLT system, a recent SLT system that we connect through RFC, and after we use another RFC connection to connect it to the cloud connector. I will explain in detail all these small steps, and after we replicate the data to Datasphere, do the modelization inside Datasphere to expose data to Analytic Cloud and to a business object. So first of all, what was existing? It was a SAP HANA system. I mentioned something is that we extract data that were in the legacy. In order to do this, we use in Datasphere there is mainly 3 kind of object to move some data. The first one was replication flow. I will talk in detail about this one. The second one is data flow. Data flow is used to extract from an external system to Datasphere and to do some transformation, enhancement, join all these steps for the one that are used to. It's like a BODS tool. the last one is the transformation flow. So everything you do inside Datasphere. So if the source and target is Datasphere, you can do it through a transformation flow. So I move to the next steps, the HANA Sidecar. So as most of you know, the HANA can be very complicated. And so sometimes you need to simplify the modelization. And Datasphere help a lot in this use case. So you can use some dimensions and modelize simpler way the HANA sidecar, and that's very the tool is very convenient. Honestly, we had some very, why I put this screenshot, because we have had some very complex scenario to fulfill, and we were able to fulfill them all. There is no scenario we are not able to fulfill with Datasphere. So I move to this this part, the SLT part. So SLT is a SAP server that you put between your SAP ECC system and your Datasphere system. This system will replicate the data and manage the delta. And it's of course you can implement some logic. They are quite be limited, but you can still implement some logic using ABAP programming, and this is very helpful to manage all the delta, and the integration between SLT and Datasphere using replication flow was really really impressive and working very well. Okay, this SLT server need to be exposed to the cloud connector. So the goal of the cloud connector is to link SLT is on-premise is on-premise in our case, and Datasphere is on the cloud. So in order to expose your on-premise system to the cloud, you need to use SAP Cloud Connector. That is the goal of these tools, and there is some authorization and resource that you need to set up. So I put them on the screenshot below, and you need to make sure that the user that is used to do this link, the technical user that you used, has the ability to run all these resources. After this, I will focus on an important part, that is the replication flow. So replication flow, the goal of the replication flow is to copy data from a SAP table to a Datasphere. So you will not implement some complex rule. You will mainly do a link one-to-one. So you take, for example, all your column from the VBAP table, and you copy them to the VBAP table inside Datasphere. Honestly, the tool is really well integrated. That means, for example, if you add a new table, automatically the table with the definition of the table will be replicated. That includes all the metadata, the keys, the description, and the definition of each field. So it's very convenient to do a one-to-one copy. So you have the possibility to filter out the data. That is what we do, because we don't want to bring all the legacy data. We filter out some of them. And an important point is to manage delta capabilities, and a point that need to be carefully checked is the integration hour measure, because you have normally contractually you have a subset of hours available, and you need to check that that you stay inside this integration hour. And of course, the organization of the replication flow can be very different. In our case, we decide to to organize like a BW process chain. For example, we group together all the transactional data that concern a particular functional area, for example, sales and distribution or material management and we pack them inside a replication flow. That has the good side of it is that you are able to manage the frequency for this type of data. For example, you want your transactional data to be loaded every 20 minutes or every 30 minutes. And in case of master data, maybe you don't want it to be updated every 30 minutes. Once a day can be enough. So that offers you the flexibility to decide the frequency you want to refresh the data. Okay, so now that we have replicated the data to the inbound layer, so I want to do maybe some more and more. We will have some integration with the data lake world, and I just want to share a common vocabulary. For example, we organize the data as inbound. That can correspond to bronze layer on data lake. We have also after this the staging layer that can be compared to the silver layer, and we have the final layer that is the consumption that can be considered as a gold. So that is the architecture we try to follow within this project. So there is different type of view. You have the fact view. So as mentioned, and you are probably used to it. The fact view is, for example, your main view, the sales order information, or and that contains the fact inside. And after around this fact view, you can have dimension and text view, and also hierarchy. But we don't have really used it yet. But that's managed by Datasphere for sure. And after all this, you can use what we call some persistency view. I think this tool is really cool and really useful. That need to be used with carefully, and you need to understand the impact of it before to use it. But that's very powerful, and that offers some very good performances for the reporting part. So we will explain why to use it, how it works, and the partitioning of the persistency. That's also an interesting subject. And also, of course, one of very important subject is the memory consumption that you need to follow and track. Okay, I will move to a demo to stay in concrete world. Okay, that is the land page of Datasphere. Most of the modelization is done through the data builder. So inside the data builder, one point, my advice is it's important to be organized and to have a clean setup. So you can use folder to properly organize your data and by typology, and also to have a naming convention it's important to that help you later to understand what is behind each view. So in order to organize it, for example, I have all my SAP table that are replicated, what we call the inbound layer or bronze layer. So that's a one-to-one copy of the table. So you will recognize some SAP table, and behind this table, so it's a replication one-to-one without added calculation. So we store it into a folder, and after you have another folder for the view where you will find a different type of view. So for example, we have the first option, of course, is to use a visual view. My advice is stick to the visual. If you cannot fulfill the need from a visual view, you still have the opportunity to use a script view that is very useful. You have access to nearly every SQL function available. So first of all, I want to show you quickly a fact view. For example, in our model, what we do, we link this, we do a sales order flow. So we link the sales order item level and the header level and the partner information. So for example, I have my sales order flow that use another view, fact view. So I link two view, one that is the header, one that is the item, and I do inner join, and I define what is the column to be used to do the inner join. And after I do a left join that do exactly the same things. Of course, you can include some calculation that you do here. My advice is do the calculation the lower that you can, and that way you can do a repartition of the calculated column and avoid over memory consumption. So after this, I have the possibility to expose the association. So in order to your fact view, you can link to the master data. So that will be like a star schema on the BW world. You can link, for example, to the material master data your field Matener. So give you this example. I take material and I have Matener and I link it. Of course, I can link to a dimension, but also I can link it directly to a text. So sometimes we do it. And another things that you can do is also link to the date. So that way you can derive it, for example, on the document date, in my case, I can derive all the date information, the year, the months, etc. Of course, what you will see on the bottom is you have three association on the source that is defined at the source level. And for example, this one, we have 4 association defined at the source level, and we can pull them from the source to the target. One example here, I decide to delete all my association, and I can draw them back if I want. I do association, copy from source, and I can select them and get them back. So I select them, and automatically that will be pulled to the target. So it's very, very convenient. One example, if this view is used several times, you will be able to pull them to the different target and define it as at one stage. So that brings me to the, in order to do association, of course, you need to have a dimension. So that's bring me to the dimension layer and to the text layer. So I will cancel what I've done and I move to the dimension layer. So one example is I have my dimension that are defined here, and just be careful about to have a naming convention that is proper. That way you understand that VD, for example, is the dimension that we are talking about, and the T is a text. So I take material that is interesting. We pull data from Mara, and we link this table to the text MAKT and to the material type and the material group. So of course you can do an attribute of an attribute. We will see it later on the analytical model. So, and what is very convenient with the tool, of course, is that you can navigate to the target. And for example, this text, you need to define, to have the text association, you need to define it as a text and to have, for example, the language that is defined as a language semantic type. So that will when the user will connect, automatically it will deduce the text, the language associated, and will filter out the data with the language that is connected. Okay. The last steps I want to share is about the persistency of the view. So behind this view, if I go, for example, to, you can persist, of course, dimension and fact, but most of the time we use the fact to do the persistency. You do persistency when you have some big data, big amount of data, and you want to keep good response time for the end user. So one example is the sales order. For the sales order, I have my persistency that can be defined here, and I can open it. Okay, parfait. Here I have my persistency and I can start a persistency. Of course, you can planify it using a task chain. That's like a process chain in the BW world, but you can use a task chain to execute this persistency step, and I will show you later on. So if I want to persist this view, I can do start persistency, and that will run the persistency. So you see it's running. The amount of data is small, but if you have bigger data, that can take a little more time, but that's pretty reasonable. Of course, you have two settings, because you will see when you use it with a big amount of data and with a lot of rule, that you will reach sometime the memory limit. So you can use memory optimized. The persistency will be longer to run, but you will not face any error on the memory side. So you will see here there is an indicator that is the memory consumption, the peak memory that is consumed. It's a very important indicator to follow up. And after this, you have also, because the persistency is stored as memory and you use memory, and you see the amount of memory that has been consumed at the end. Okay, so I come back to my slide, and that close up the first demo that I have done, that I've prepared for you. The second demo will be on the consumption layer. That is the layer that you will expose to your end user. And so this layer is like a cube. It's both a cube and a query. So that is where you will get your star schema, and where you can decide to display an attribute or another. And so I will show you an example using the same flow that we just saw. So, and you can also define some calculated and restricted key figure, and I will show you some example of business case, and of course also usage of variable. Okay, let me go to the analytical model. So I go to the root folder, analytical view. So I'm at the analytical view level, and you see here that we have our fact table that is in the middle of the model, and around this fact table we have some dimensions that are set up, and inside this dimension I can select this dimension and decide what are the attributes that I need to expose. And you see here we have material, and I've created a dimension, so an attribute of an attribute, and of course you can go for several layers. I think the max I do was 3 or 4, but I don't see any limitation now. So material, and I can decide to expose an attribute that is the material group. You will see some logo here. That means there is a dimension behind, and you see a small t, that means there is also a text association done. So that means you will be able to expose both the text and the dimension. And of course, you can do exactly the same things for the date. And I think what is really powerful and great is, for example, you can add a prefix. So that means all the field that you create is creation date months. So you know what you are talking about, because there is one field for the creation date of the sales order and one field for the document date of the sales order. And so you are able to differentiate them and add a suffix, but you can also do it for the technical name, both of them. And you can decide to expose an attribute of material easily. You just have to select it and add it to the view. Let me show you the impact. What I can do is do a preview of the data. I will refresh. What is really cool is the preview mode. You can preview your set of data. Okay, I will focus a little later on the variable to explain you, but if I run it directly, now you see that I have my field available, and for example, I have document date, and with the attribute that I decide to expose, and for example, I want to split by year my information, I can easily split it by year. And I can do exactly the same things for the material. For example, material, I will display the material, and I have the material key and the text available because I do a text association with this. And of course, I can display an attribute of it, that is the material type. And with the material type, I have the text associated that comes also. And the material group, you see that the material group is exposed independently. It's not under material. You can decide to display it under material or outside as an independent field. So performances are really good, and if you face any issue with performances, you can still use the persistency mode to pre-do the link. After this, on analytical model, one thing I want to share with you is about the calculated key figure and the restricted key figure. So for example, here I have the possibility to define some measure. So I have some native measure that comes, and I can also create some calculated and restricted key figure. My advice is be rigorous with the naming convention. I'm a little old boy for this part, but that is helpful in the future. So you can create a restricted key figure. That means you will restrict to a particular set of data your key figure. And of course, you can also define what we call a variable. So you will have mainly 4 types of variable. The first one is a standard variable that you will display and be able to restrict. There is some filter variable to restrict the data, and there is a restricted measure variable. So that's a variable that you will use into a restricted key figure. So as an example, I build a small set to deduce the actual year, because that can be interesting to know what is the invoice amount, the sales amount for the actual year and the previous year. And of course, you can define a dynamic variable. So, and this dynamic variable will read a table, a variable table that you can define in the system. So one example, if I open it, here I go to here, and okay. So I can define a view that will deduce me automatically. So I have the script view, variable view, and that's a variable view that I can use to deduce the actual year, the previous year, etc. And I can reuse the result of this query into my analytical model to fill the actual year. Once I have done this, I have a restricted key figure where I define that I take the year of the creation of the document date and I feed it to the actual year. So that offers a lot of flexibility. The only one thing I dislike is that you cannot hide this variable for the moment. So if SAP listen to me, that will be great to be able to hide it. That will be a good enhancement. So everything you do in a cube, you can do it here. And sorry, I come back to another point that I forget to mention is about the I say we should use the visual view, but sometimes there is some need that you cannot fulfill with a visual view, so you have the opportunity to use some scripted view. So if I go to view and scripted view, I can use SQL language to fulfill a specific need. And so here you can write directly your SQL. It's like a table function on CDS view or on HANA Word, and you can get your result from this view directly. And what is cool also is that you can persist this view. For example, if you want to have a better response time, you can store the result of this SQL view inside the memory. And in this view, what I've noticed is that sometimes you have SQL Windows function, for example, lag and lead, that doesn't work on the standard SQL. So you don't forget that you have two options for this. You have one option. Let me create quickly a new SQL view. You can use the standard SQL language, or you can also use the SQL script function, like a table function that you have on HANA on the calculation view and CDS view. And if you use this, we have noticed that the SQL Windows function are properly managed. So if you face this issue, go to the SQL script table function. That's close the second part of my demo, and I will move to my last part. That is about the performances. So there is two types of memory. There is the disk storage and the memory, and they are very different. And you need to manage the memory really carefully because it's like gold for you. That's used in processing the data that permits you to get good response time. The response time is correct also for the disk memory storage, but the memory is really important and you need to monitor it carefully. So what I will try to explain you is how to monitor it and how to check the peak consumption and the impact of the persistency on memory consumption, and also the report execution impact on memory consumption. Okay, so that's a lot of subject to treat. So mainly, if you go, first of all, you have a part that is integration. If you click here, you will have the data integration monitor. You have a lot of tools that help you to monitor the memory. So first of all, let me just go back to the space management. You will see that you have two kinds of memory in the space management. Sorry. You will see that you have disk memory and memory, and you can decide the proportion that you want to have of each of them. So that's inside the space management. If you go to the data monitor, you will have some very useful tool to manage all this memory consumption. So first example is when you replicate your table, you can decide to keep them in memory, in disk, or in memory. So what you will see here, you will have some statistical about the memory that is used. What is it, disk or memory? One example, for example, I decide Mara to don't put it in memory. You will see that there is 0 consumption. Of course, this can be changed and you can force it into memory. So that is for the inbound layer. You can see directly the consumption of the table and you can sort them easily to get what is the biggest consumption of memory. After this, you have also some view that consume some memory, and that is where you will find the persisted view consumption. Just wait for it to refresh. Okay, so you will see that there is only one for the moment that I persist and with the number of records associated. So you need to carefully check what is persisted because if there is some new data, you need to make sure the persistency has been run. In order to automatize this persistency, you can use task flow. It's like a procession at the end. So if you open the task flow, for example, you will see the run and the steps that you define. Okay, waiting for it. Okay, perfect. And let's move to the modelization part of this task flow. And here you can define the steps to persist the data. Okay, what you can do, if the amount of data is not too big, you can directly persist the sales order view. So it will directly read all the dependency and define the source table and persist the data. But sometimes the cake is too big to be hit at one size, and you need to partition it. And that is what you do when you define some sub-step. So I will, and inside the persistency, I will you can define check what is the part that consumes the most, and that is easy to manage on the persistency. So I don't want to spend too many time, and maybe we are running late now, but quickly, the last things I can share with you is about the persistency part. There is some tools that are very useful to manage the persistency memory. Just find VFSO and show you quickly the tool that can be used for this. And that will be my last point. Okay, so if I go to the target and I do persistency, I will be able to manage the dependency. And I have a tools that permit me to analyze what are the steps that are the more memory greedy, and that way I can optimize these steps. For example, you go to data persistency, start view analyzer, that will run the analysis of the memory, and that way you will see what have been consumed and where. So since my set of data is very small, that's run very fast, and after this I have the possibility to check the result of what has been consumed and the metric information, what is the peak of memory. And so this point is very important to manage. Okay, I will conclude on this part and give and try to answer some question that can be raised. Eric, can you take over?
Yes, and just a reminder to everyone, you have a Q&A section. So if there is any questions you want to ask, do not hesitate, put them there. We may not have time to go through them all, but at least if it's there, we're going to be able to potentially include it as we publish this webinar. One thing that was asked, I was looking earlier, is about SLT. So from a licensing and is it always needed? So if we go back to your architecture diagram,
Okay.
Isham. Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I take the first one.
The first
This
one,
one.
the one without
Yes.
arrows. Okay, good. So when we look at SLT, so the part that's under AWS right now, so this was required here because the source system was ECC. If your customer has or yourself have S4, you don't need that separate SLT. Datasphere actually is able to do all of this directly with S4. In this case here, it was an ECC instance. Was S4 upgrade maybe in the future, but it wasn't a priority. Removing HANA Sidecar was the priority because when obviously we're not covering this here, but there were a lot of other sources involved in this project. But here we really focused on the HANA Sidecar part. So that the reason we had needed SLT is to do that almost live delta between ECC and Datasphere. Also, um, some of you may have looked how much does SLT cost and everything. SLT for this kind of scenario is actually included in your Datasphere license. So afterwards, it's just yes, finding here it was AWS, so the cost was the AWS server. But outside of that, you need a server where you put SLT, you configure it, and you're going to be able to use it with Datasphere because that licensing is part of your Datasphere package. It's always in there, unless they remove it at some point. But all up till very recently, it was in there, so we can always refer to it. And anyways, the moment you have ECC, it's the only way you can do real-time replication between the two systems. Um, okay, so we're already at 50. So I guess I'm going to thank everyone who attended this webinar. Real thank you for your time. Do not hesitate. This will be posted at some point on our YouTube channel. And do follow our publications. I know we have a lot of webinars coming. Some are a bit more educational, like this one. Some will be a bit more around strategy. And we hope you appreciated it. We welcome any comments afterwards. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.